Miss Barbara O'Neill, what an absolute honor to have you here. Thank you so much for giving me your precious time and for sharing your knowledge with the Mama movement. I've started this because of the profound transformation for me as a mother, and I felt that there was a need and a gap in society and in the world, and I thought, who better to ask the universe to bring to me, and he brought me you. And I'd really like to know and understand your why you have started this. You have 6 beautiful children and many, many grandchildren. Tell me what your idea of healthy living in a child in today's world is.
Well, I grew up as a child that when you get sick, you go to the doctor, he gives a drug and you get better. And then I trained as a psychiatric nurse, same thing. And so when I had my first baby, I went into labour early at, I think it was about 36 weeks, and I had hepatitis, and I had an epidural and a high forceps delivery, and that was not what my plan was. And then when that little baby was 16 months old, she got an earache. Over 6 weeks, 4 courses of antibiotics, the earache comes back. That was very confronting to me. The birth,
of course.
This was happening. I did not want this because my partner and I, we were sort of getting into back to nature hippie lifestyle, and this did not fit at all. And so I was really jolted into a realisation that this isn't working. But I didn't know anything else. I knew nothing else, but I didn't want to put my child in harm. No parent does.
Of course not.
So when my next child when I was pregnant with our next child, I started reading, and I had a Laboya birth.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you've heard of the Laboya birth. Dr. Laboya is a French doctor who was having soft nights, not like these, soft lights and no sound. And as soon as the baby's born, the baby's put into warm water. And that's what I did with my second child. It was just beautiful. And when he was put in the warm water, he just looked around like this. I mean, minutes being born. And that was a very beautiful experience. And just the closeness with this little one. Whereas I had to work hard on my first one, because she was in the humidicrid for 5 weeks. Of course, I love them equally, but I just felt as a mother drawn to this one that had the bonding. I have to tell you that with my first baby, when she was 3, I let her breastfeed again.
Wow.
Because I wanted her to have this beautiful softness that I had with the second child. So I'd lay down with both little toddlers feeding.
That is incredible.
And I wanted that coming back. But when my second child, he got an earache, I thought, I'm not going to the doctor, and that's very scary. It's a very scary decision because I didn't want that again. So I went to the old lady next door. You got to do something. She's 85, I'm 25. I said, what did your mother do when you had an earache? She said, steam an onion on the stove. I did. Wrapped it on his ear. He slept for 2 hours, and I was in hook, line and sinker. There's something else.
There's something else.
And so that's really what turned me around. And it was probably when James, that's my second child, about that time I began to read the Bible, and I became a Christian. And then I thought, how does God view it? How does God view this incredible body he gave us, that he created to heal? How does God view sickness, the treatment of sickness? And as I read the Bible, I read about King Hezekiah putting a poultice of figs on a boil, and Jesus spitting in clay and putting it on the eyes and asking the blind man to wash, and he came away seeing. And I started to read about herbs, and I realised that, wow, I was brought up in a church and we never heard about this.
Yes. It's different. But if we don't open our mind and understand, and if we're stuck in the narrow-mindedness of not wanting to explore and gaining knowledge, we will never want to look further than what we're taught. We won't want to go past our limitations.
No,
I think that's beautiful.
That is true. It has been said that pain is a wonderful teacher.
That is
So
definitely
the
is.
pain of that first birth, the pain of that situation with the antibiotic,
Yes.
it woke me up. I thought, I don't want this anymore.
I agree, and I'm so grateful to have you share that with so many moms out there, because there's this fear-mongering about, what do I do? What decisions do I make? So asking you, what do you tell your daughters? How do you advise them differently to the current standards of mainstream? How do you teach them to raise their children?
Well, do you know when I taught them, when they were this big? Because when they had their babies, they just naturally did what I did. They had home births, they had natural births, and I remember my daughter Julia, I think it was her first birth. She had a beautiful natural birth, and it was in a like a birthing room. Wasn't like in the hospital session.
Yes.
And then she saw a doctor come in, and she said, "What's the doctor coming in for?" They said, "Your placenta hasn't come away. We may need to take you into surgery." Well, she got up and squatted
I'll get it out.
on the table, and that afterbirth came out. So I think it's interesting, and it's true. Children will more do what you do than what you say. And so I actually haven't told my children what to do. They just do it because that's the way they were brought up. And when I had my fourth child, my first two child watched the birth. The third child fell asleep, so she was 2.5. She didn't see the birth. But when she woke up, Mother was in the lounge room with the new little baby. And I think that's where it starts, really, with birth, and realising that birth is not a sickness. It's a very natural occurrence.
Of course it is. And in the world today, we see overwhelming information. A lot of it true, but a lot of it false. How do we know what to trust?
That's a very good question. The internet has opened the field on information, but also confusion. But I also maintain we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And Solomon in the Bible, he said, there's nothing new under the sun. And what I did with raising my babies, how did the village women do it? How did the women in Fiji villages do it, in the African villages? They had their babies in slings. They slept with their babies. These are tried and true methods. And I did not give my babies food until they were easily into their second year of life, because they had no teeth. It made no sense to me. What do the women in the village do? There's no blenders, there's no baby mixers.
Sure.
It should be just breast milk. And I thought, well, if there's no teeth, how can they chew? So I waited till they had good teeth before I gave them food. So I was probably very unconventional.
And you're known for that. But I think that's important in today's world, is about questioning.
It's about questioning and looking at what has been done traditionally. That's very important, because there is nothing new under the sun.
And what do you think the systems do to maternal instinct, these highly medicalized systems? What do you feel it is doing to us as mothers, and how can we steer away from that?
What I believe it's doing, it's taking away our trust in our own bodies. And God created this body to heal. He created it to function, and to function well, and it will if you give it the right conditions. And it's really only about the last 150 years that allopathic medicine has been the main medicine. So I like to look at before that. I have books on the American Red Indians and the simple natural treatments that they used. And they were brought up, I guess, as my children were brought up. They were brought up in a rainforest, and they could garden. And I remember one day I was hanging the clothes on the clothesline up the hill, and I saw all the children running with purpose to the house. And I decided to hide behind the sheet just to observe what they were doing, because they weren't looking for me. And I think the youngest was about 2, and they're all running, and there's obviously one that's crying or a bit upset. So I just thought, I'm just going to see what happens here. And they sat that little one on the veranda, and one ran inside and came back with a bowl of something and was putting something on her leg. And then I saw them all relax and, all right, you know, we've worked this one out.
Yeah.
So then I came down and I said, what's going on? And they said, oh, bee sting. They didn't even call me. They just worked it all out themselves. So that's how my children grew up, and I did aim to bring my children up to think and to work things out for themselves. I didn't spoon feed them. I didn't even spoon feed my babies. I actually never made baby food. Give them a piece of apple.
Yes,
give them a piece
from the
of
ground.
Carrot. That's what I did. So I see that my children were thinkers, and I think that's been lost a bit. It's been lost a bit, and I see so many parents today, it just alarms me. We call them helicopter parents. They're hovering around the child. The child can't do a thing. The child can't make a decision. Let them go. Let them go.
Let them explore, let them learn.
Yeah, let them learn. And if they fall, they look at you, you smile. And in my Fijian friends, they say, the whites don't understand us. When our child falls off a bike, we laugh. We're laughing, we go over, we dust them off, and, you know, but you know what the child's immediately thinking? It's all right. It's all right. And I think that's where it starts. You know, of course we love our children, but please don't indulge them. It ruins them. Let them be. Let them work it out for themselves. No, if they're crawling, don't hold their hands and walk them. Let them walk themselves. Let them do it themselves. Put them on the floor. Let them roll. Even at that age, let them be independent. You know, they're happy kids. They're happy kids. And so I never fed my babies. I never did anything. I just let them do it themselves. And you get confident, happy children.
You do. Every morning I take my daughter outside, we run on the grass together.
Good.
She calls it grounding. And it's beautiful because she experiences what the world is naturally.
Oh, yes.
And that's how I think it should be done.
I think it should be done. I think God made flowers for the little girls.
I did.
And buds for the little boys. and we lived up in a rainforest. And in the town, which was half an hour away, just a little, you know, one-horse town, as they say, and they'd ring me up and they'd say, Barbara, we've got a play school here. If you bring your children this day, we'll get an extra teacher. Because I didn't usually bring my children to such things. So we went, and of course the children had a great time. And then there was a cry. And we said, what is it? There's a bug in the sand pit. And all the children jumped out, and all my children jumped in. They love bugs.
So does my daughter. She goes, Mom, bugs.
Yes, yeah.
We have to allow them to explore, to learn, to grow. The only way we can do that is by letting them be.
In the beauty of nature, you know, I call it God's second book. It moves, it crawls, it opens, it's beautiful.
I love that, and you've given me so much that I can think of as a mother and how I want to grow up my child. And I think what's important and what this movement is about is conscious parenting, and we need to direct ourselves to how we can be better conscious humans ourselves in humanity so that we can raise our children in the same way.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And I say to parents, never frown at your child, never yell, and never get angry. Because that tells the child, I don't like you. But there should be consequences. So if a child drops a plate and they look at me and I say, dear, the plate has dropped, let's clean it up. And the parents say, oh, you wouldn't let them touch the cut glass. I said, yes. Because how else do they learn? You show them how to pick it up carefully, but it shows them the consequence of not being careful with that plate.
Yes.
And if they cut themselves, then they know. And we put a Band-Aid on it and we just thank God that cut can heal.
How else would they learn if they're not exposed to it?
It's the best way for a child to learn. And what they learn then is common sense, and common sense isn't very common today.
That is definitely true. I completely agree. Barbara, I want to chat about something that is not often touched upon, and that's preconception. Mm-hmm. It's an important topic, and many women want to have children in the most healthy form of them being the most healthy. It's the foundation to building ourselves before our child arrives. We speak about the concept of preparing our bodies beforehand as women. Is that something that you believe in? How long ideally should a woman prepare themselves?
Well, ideally 2 years.
2 years.
But not everyone has that luxury.
Definitely not. I did not prepare for 2 years.
No. But yes, not everyone has 2 years. And if you don't have 2 years, well, you just do the best you can. Why do I say 2 years? Because the parents' lifestyle habits affect the gene pool they're giving to their children. In fact, one writer said parents are the genetic engineers of their children. So if you've got a couple who are having a lot of coffee, a lot of chocolate, refined sugar, that can actually affect the pancreatic DNA. It can affect the neurotransmitter DNA because caffeine disrupts the neurotransmitters. Most people are shocked to hear this because they don't tell you that on the coffee packet.
No, they definitely don't.
And also 2 drinks a week can cause a child to be born with fetal alcohol syndrome. So that's why I educate. I tell people what they won't hear anywhere else. And I'm thankful to Dr. Neil Nedley. He's an American doctor who wrote a book. It's like a big encyclopedia called Proof Positive. And just some of the things I just touched on quickly to you just then, he's got all the medical research that shows these things to be true. And so, yes, for 2 years, ideally no coffee, ideally maybe 1 square of 85% dark chocolate now and then. It's not the odd day you do it or the odd day you don't. It's what you do every day that's going to define the genetic pool that you give to your children. But even if you are unable to do all that, the body's so very forgiving. You look at what some people eat and they're still alive. You look at what some people are doing to their body, they're still alive. The body's very forgiving. And as soon as we start implementing the right principles, it starts to revive and recover. So that's the good news.
And we speak about deep nourishment in nourishing our bodies. Often women ask me, what should I be eating? What supplements should I be taking to prepare myself for this journey? What would you suggest?
Well, people say to me, what supplements do you take, Barbara? I say, I don't.
Okay.
What I do is I drink adequate water, ideally 8 glasses a day. And whether you in my age, in my early 70s, whether you're in your 50s, menopausal age, whether you're in your 30s, 40s as a mother, whether you're in your 20s preparing for birth, whether you are a young woman going through menopause, and back again to the woman who's just given baby, whether you're breastfeeding, it's actually all the same. It's all the same. Lots of fruits and vegetables with their minerals, with their fibre, and also whole grains and legumes. I love legumes. I love going to India where I get the most wonderful legume dishes, and nuts and seeds are also excellent forms of protein and good fats. And the 2 fats that have stood the test of time are coconut oil, olive oil. I travel with my little olive oil, took it down to breakfast this morning to nourish the skin, to nourish every cell in the body. And people say, but what do you feed children? I said, I feed them the same thing I do. So you see what I'm saying? It's actually the same.
It is the same.
It is the same.
And if we are comfortable nourishing ourselves with that in a unique and beautiful way, and we know this is good for us, we know that it's good for our child. I do the same. Everything I feed myself, I feed my child.
That's right.
We grow our own vegetables in our garden. Every morning we go and collect our tomatoes together. We eat them. That's pure organic food. That is what's nourishing.
In fact, 1 organic tomato will deliver 9 times the iron of a conventionally grown tomato.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, and the flavour.
That I know. The flavour?
Do you know what
outstanding.
Do you know what that flavour is? You're eating minerals, and our bodies literally glued together with minerals. And our skin, our hair, our eyes, our muscles, every part of our body, it's an illustration of how we're eating.
That is true. When we speak about the role of men in conception, this is not often touched upon. It's like the responsibility is solely on women, and that is not true. The large majority of genetic material that goes into our placenta, which nourishes our babies, are from the man.
From men.
How should they be preparing? What should they be doing?
Again, eating very well. Again, keeping away from supplements that have the ability to affect that DNA. And we all want to pass on the best DNA to our children.
We do.
And even though we've got a situation today where with the genetic code, a lot of people are getting weaker and weaker, we can turn that around. And once we start giving the right conditions, then the genes can get stronger and stronger. That's such good news. I look at my grandchildren and I look at my 10, 11-year-old granddaughter. She hasn't even begun to develop breasts, but we're getting young women developing breasts at 8. And I'm thinking, wow, the genes are doing well. None of my girls are on the pill. So they have given a very good DNA to their children. And yes, they've chosen husbands who are interested in health, interested in healthy lifestyle.
What a blessing.
So yeah, that is a blessing. So I look at these grandchildren and they're strong, they're healthy, they haven't been vaccinated. What a wonderful start you can give your child.
There are a lot of couples in the world today, speaking of what we're speaking of right now and how we're affected by toxins, phthalates, everything around us. We're exposed consistently to everything that is not good. And I think that is a huge imperative decision in how we actually grow our bodies. But many women and men are infertile currently and struggling to have babies. What would you say to them as a couple, someone who has gone through IVF and failed, someone who has gone to every single doctor, and this is a very common problem?
And this is a great expense too.
It is a great expense.
So I would take them back to this incredible body that's got this drive to heal us, to drive to maintain us. But our body runs according to precision balance. And so what's happening with so many couples, the hormones are out of balance. And we've seen many couples be able to have babies. They've come to our retreat. They've gone through a couple of days of detox. They've learnt about the dangers of caffeine, alcohol, also the dangers of polyester fabrics. So I'm very careful about where my money goes. I have my cotton and linen jacket. I have my silk top. I have my linen pants. I won't go further, but I'm sure you'll realise everything I've got on is made out of natural fibre. What they're finding today, that these 3 fabrics that were created in a chemical laboratory, nylon, acrylic and polyester, when they're touching the skin, especially in a hot environment, the fabric warms, the pores open, the chemicals are going in and they're affecting the hormones. So I say to men, please only wear natural fibre. There are some natural fibres that a lot of people don't realise are, and that's viscose, that's made out of bamboo, rayon is out of wood, and modal. Modal is the cellulose spun from the birch tree. And when I was in Dubai a few weeks ago, I was talking with a friend of mine. He has this huge gym. He said, I get all my sportswear from London. I have got a company that make it out of modal. And when I was just travelled on business class, they give you pyjamas and they're silky and they're made out of modal. And modal is the cellulose spun from the birch tree. So that's interesting.
Wow, that is interesting.
Now, these fabrics are made soft with chemicals, unfortunately. But if you buy it, wash it, hang it in the clothesline for the day, and the sun and the washing will detox the chemicals out. Even when you buy cotton, you have to wash it and put it in the clothesline because cotton is one of the most sprayed crops. So I'm just touching on a couple of areas where we're being affected by the toxins in even fabrics. A lot of people don't even think about that.
Okay.
And We stay in a lot of Airbnbs. I'm in a different place every week. I've just done a 5-week tour in America. And I'm shocked at the amount of Airbnbs that have polyester sheets, polyester blankets. It's in my contract now, cotton sheets, cotton blankets.
It's so important.
It is so important. And even though you'd say, well, Barbara, you're long past having babies, that's right. But
It's not just
I
about
want to
that.
look after my body now. I want to enjoy the latter years of my life. And so, and I'm sure you and your listeners didn't even think I'd be talking about fabrics, but not only fabrics. So I have all natural fibre on, but I must be careful what I wash it in.
What we put on our skin, what we put on our hair.
Your personal
what
care
we
products.
inhale,
And I'm
yes.
so happy you just gave me a gift of, and it looks like they're all natural personal care products.
Yeah.
So they're things a lot of people do not think about. They think it doesn't matter. You see, one cigarette doesn't cause lung cancer, but 1,000 cigarettes later, maybe it's 1,000,000 cigarettes later, I don't know, it's starting to happen. And it's the same with these polyester fabrics and the toxic laundry detergents, little by little, like the dripping tap on a stone, they're having an effect. Also, men, be careful what you're eating, what you're drinking. You want to give that strong gene pearl through
You do.
to that little baby.
We want the absolute best, like you say, everything of us, the best of the both of us, to be in our little human that we're growing,
That's
and
right.
how we nurture them and how we want to see them grow in this world.
That's right.
And that starts with preconception. And
It does. And we've got a saying in Australia, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. I don't know if you've heard this.
no, that's beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful? It's actually how we're raising these little ones. And I'll tell you something very interesting. I read a book by George Catlin, and this man, he's not alive anymore. If he's alive, he'd be about 200. But he lived amongst the American Red Indians, and he noticed that they prize nose breathing. And he said the mother feeds the baby to sleep and then lays the little one down and then gently closes the mouth. And she holds that mouth closed till she's sure the little one is only nose breathing. Isn't that amazing? And he tells the story of a white trader and an Indian had a dispute and they were going to have a fight, but thankfully they worked it out. And so George Catlin went to the Indian later and said, weren't you worried? That white trader was twice your size. He said, no, I would have won. He's a mouth breather.
I've read many new texts about mouth breathing versus nose breathing, and how it even shapes the jaw, shapes the face, shapes
That's true.
how we speak,
That's true.
how it develops child language,
That's
how
true.
it actually even involves how our respiratory,
That's right.
how
Affects the
that involves,
tonsils,
affects the
affects the
tonsils.
lungs. You see, nose purifies the air, warms the air and humidifies the air, balances blood gases and pressurizes the air, making it perfect for the lungs. Mouth does not do that. Now, I was reading the report of a Scottish dentist. He claims mouth breathing is causing decay.
I've heard that too. And completely changes the way that the teeth form and shape. When you look at how many children nowadays need braces, metal in the mouth, retainers, what are we doing to our generation?
That's right.
Something as simple as just changing how we breathe.
That's right. That's right.
I've learned so much in such a short time, but I have so much more to ask you, if that's okay.
It is.
I'd like to chat about pregnancy, how we nourish life, which is the most powerful work that we as women do. And I first want to ask you about your pregnancies, if that's okay. If you'd like to share how that came about. You spoke about your natural births. You are an advocate for that. And if you could speak to my mothers out there who are questioning if they should have a Caesar versus natural, what would you say to them?